Welcome back on the AM show. It's time now for us to head into our big stories, and it's all about the need to survive versus the public interest, the existential threat of illegal mining, popularly known as Galamsey. It rages on with reckless abandon and, of course, emboldened by political actors, leaving the people worse off and the nation saddled with this menace. The question: has civil society gone silent on holding the government accountable? And what can the Mahama government do differently to end Galamsey now? This morning, we'll be interacting with stakeholders, journalists who have reported on this activity in basically at the peril of their lives. We'll be discussing with them the way forward. But we'll also listen to the Asante Hene Otumfuose II on what he had to say on this matter.
I'm also aware of the threats to your employees also. I've been briefed about that, and therefore that also the steps that you've taken to make sure that your workers and employees are also protected. Unfortunately, we don't have a minister for lands now. He's gone through vetting, because that's also another step where we will discuss broadly with the government in terms of policy in relation to illegal mining, the Galamsey issue. So it's another one. So I know that will come up after the minister is in place, and then we have a very candid and thorough meeting with the president and the minister to see the way forward in relation to dealing with that. I recall in 2016 where this issue came up at that time. And I'm also saying that we should see the portion of about 60 acres or whatever to the illegal miners at that time. And all that. In fact, there were vibes that even though Anglo Gold Owners is part, the portion didn't go to the people that were supposed to go to. And even though that was done, Anglo Gold honored their part, and we ceded the 60%, 60 whatever acres to whatever. So this all has been lingering, and people arguing that it didn't come to us, so we didn't have anywhere to go. And that is also not acceptable for people to take the law into their own hands to go and disturb legitimate business, which Anglo Gold and Obuasi are intertwined. The community relies on the mining company. The mining company also is there because it's for the community, and that it is not acceptable. People cannot just say that because we want to eat, we have to go to the mine. No, that cannot be done. We are not living in a banana republic. The law must be obeyed. Because if I'm living in my house here, this lease has been given to me. Someone just cannot walk in to say, I also want somewhere to live, and therefore I'm coming to live in your house.
Well, there's also this video of a woman who, days to the 2024 elections, had this to say. It has left a lot scratching their heads about the assault on Obuasi.
The state of what's coming from the show. Yeah, go home. We get it. So they come. Me and the talk about go home. Yes, so me have a point to say the money here. Come on. You bet no number. Nothing. We didn't get something I take. You just money here be a boss. Me as a political organizer, I was going to be down. Yeah, we go vote now. You won't say Papa starting now. Now they catch me memory for what check on the camera. Yes, I'm going to.
Well, so we ask this morning, well thought out, and is it being executed? You heard her make mention of a number of things, including, like we mentioned, that suggestion about going to Obuasi. In the studio with me is Sweetie Abochi. Good morning.
Good morning, Ben. How are you?
Here we are.
Yeah, look at our background.
It's a very disturbing scene there, and this is not some beverage. It is our water bodies and different swathes of land in mining areas that have been left deteriorated, brought to this point.
Let's speak to our guests and find out from them how things are looking from their perspective. Joining us via Zoom is Samuel Osei Bekwai. He's Executive Director, Center for Executives and Development Africa. We also have Awula Sewa. She's founder, Eco-Conscious Citizens, as well as Dr. Ken Ashigbe for Ghana Coalition Against Galamsey, as well as Ohiming Tewia. He's a journalist with Love FM, and Erastus Asare Donko. He's editor at Love FM. I want to start with Erastus Asare Donko. Erastus, thank you for joining the conversation. Now, the uproar we saw in the lead up to election 2024, that is, on the fight against illegal mining versus what we are seeing now. What can you tell us about our approach to this menace? Well, we will try to reconnect with Erastus Asare Donko, but let me move to Dr. Ken Ashigbe. Doc, thank you too for joining the conversation. Like I was saying, the uproar we saw in the last days of 2024 versus what we are seeing in the early days of 2025 seems like there's a difference. What can you tell us about the difference in approach to the fight against Galamsey?
Well, thank you very much, T. I'm not too sure anything has really changed. In 2016, after the elections, and then early 2017, we saw a transition. We saw a transition from the NDC criminals who were mining to the NPP criminals who then took over the concessions. Currently, what is happening is the fact that the NDC criminals again are taking over from the NPP criminals who are sinning against the Minerals and Mining Act and are involved in the nefarious and dangerous genocidal and ecocidal activities that is destroying our lands, killing our people, and destroying our water and our environment. Unfortunately, what has happened is that, that there has been, the government since it took over power has taken some particular actions. You saw Oral being formed. You saw a committee that was put up immediately. There was a challenge with our fuel for our electricity supply. You also saw that when the SHS students had challenges with their food, there was also an intervention made. There were orders issued for people to hand over their diplomatic passports, people, to leave office. But there has been a loud silence about, the issue that is actually also destroying our life, even worse than corruption is doing to us. We've not had anything. So what happened is that the Ghana Coalition Against Galamsey, we wrote to His Excellency the President, reminding him of that and asking for an engagement, but most importantly, also asking him to issue a cease and desist order. We're still waiting for feedback from him. And then what we then did was on the 20th of January, last week, we issued a statement as well, updating Ghanaians of what the situation is. Because the challenge that confronts us has not gone away. It's even become worse. And so it is surprising that we are finding out from Joy News, your research that you have done, that apparently when we thought that there was nobody actually acting, this current government in their tenure have actually issued one permit. And I'm sure because they don't have a minister, they'll be waiting for the minister to sign it. But then after the elections, the former government went on issuing almost 100 permits. And you would have wondered that the transitional team, as they had asked that the government that was the outgoing government should hold on onto all major things, they would also have held on onto granting licenses. So it's really a disturbing occasion. And it's important for all of us to realize that in as much as we know that His Excellency the President, in his 120-day social contract with all of us Ghanaians, has number 19 to deal with the challenges of Galamsey. The silence is deafening. And we're hoping that after today's vetting of the minister designate, we will see immediate action to, declare the state of emergency on our water bodies in our forest reserve.
Right.
Take action to do the other things that we had asked for.
Thank you so much. Let's get on phone now and speak to Samuel Osei Bekwai. He is Executive Director, Center for Extractives and Development Africa. Sir, thank you for joining the conversation. What does the fight against Galamsey look like at this point, from your perspective? How has the fight evolved?
Thank you. Good morning to all your viewers as well. I think with the incoming government, as Mr. Shigwe has mentioned, I have reviewed their manifesto. They were very clear about the commitment to the fight against Galamsey. I am on the ground most times because I'm doing a lot of work and research in the sector. It is very difficult for you to use a state agency like MINCOM to fight Galamsey. The number of persons involved in the activity, in the villages, in the very remote areas, Erastus would be able to attest to that. Number of foreigners, including Burkinabés, including Beninois, it's really going to be very difficult for you to get them off the bush. But there is one thing we can do, as Ken mentioned. For me, I think declaring a state of emergency may work up to some point, given that, as Ken mentioned, if this is to do with mafias, once the MPP mafias are leaving, the NDC mafias will be coming in. But one thing I have noticed about the small-scale miners, including both legal and illegal, is that some of them are doing a very good work without disturbing any river or disturbing certain forests as well. We have tried to work within them to ensure that they become checks on each other. And so the National Small-Scale Mining Association have tried their best to some extent. What I can suggest would be the government, after declaring the state of emergency, working with the miners to say that if you don't report those who are destroying the river bodies, I will ban Galamsey. Trust me, this is the livelihood of many. And in fact, that will not come at a bigger cost to most of the miners, because the same excavator you are going to use to clear the land and start digging, you can use the same excavator to create what we call the recirculation pond. In some areas, they have even gone ahead to dig what we call boreholes to supply them water. So for me, I think that would work. Some state of emergency, but then working within the small-scale miners to ensure that they become checks on each other. Otherwise, we have tried the approach of military intervention. We have tried the approach of banning it for 2 years, and still that was even the year small-scale mining gold went up. But we need to have a plan, and it will be quite unfair to the new government, given that the minister is being vetted today, to say that they have not been able to do something. Let me comment a little bit about the licensing. We in the sector, we knew there were so many applications that the previous minister was not signing. And a lot of the applications were even coming from some of them who were doing legal mining. And I believe because they lost power, he kind of quickly, I'm sure it became like, let me get the minister to sign my license before he leaves. Otherwise, the new minister is going to, of course, probably want to do an audit before he starts signing. So I guess, that's my best guess, would be that is the reason for this sharp increase in the issuance of mineral licenses, especially in the small-scale mining. So that is probably the reason why. And that is not right. We have to say that. That is not right. Whether even a proper diligence by the minister himself, because he signs those documents, but Minerals Commission does all the reviews before they give it to the minister. Whether the minister had taken time to even go over most of them, we are not sure of that.
Thank you. Let me get some quick comments from Awula Sewa as well, founder for Eco-Conscious Citizens. I've been seeing your posts on X, especially about, I think in terms of the civil society organizations who used to fight for Galamsey, you are the ones who I still see that, you haven't given up on the fight yet. However, Ken Ashigbe is saying that nothing really has changed. NDC criminals, like he says, are taking over from the NPP criminals. From your perspective, has the change in government impacted the fight in any way?
Of course not. But let me first make a comment. The previous speaker talked about banning Galamsey. You see, we have to be very clear about language. If by Galamsey you mean illegal mining, what is illegal is a criminal activity. So it's not a question of banning it. It's a question of enforcing the laws. You don't ban stealing. Stealing is a criminal offense. So let's be clear about what we mean by Galamsey. If we mean illegal mining, it's a criminal activity and the laws should be enforced. Second of all, I completely agree with my brother Ken. We didn't vote for musical chairs. We didn't vote for one set of criminals replacing another set of criminals. And that is what seems to be happening. And that is why we have been very, very clear. President Trump I'm no fan of President Trump. But the things that he said he would do, he's not waiting for 100 days or 120 days. Whilst he was waiting to be formally whatever, he had already planned what he was doing. And from day one, he hits the ground running. There's absolutely no excuse for the length of time that it is taking. Either we believe we face an existential threat or we don't believe it. If we believe our house is burning, what on earth is stopping us from reacting? When it came to Anglo Gold, the president was quick to react and ask for Anglo Gold to pay for the medical bills of the trespassers. But what has happened right now with journalists being attacked, with the team being attacked, I haven't yet heard him respond. What I would say, and I said it during the election time, there seemed to be no seriousness about dealing with illegal mining. You're talking about oral. That's all well and good. Let's retrieve stolen property. But of what good is that going to be if we are all dying from having been poisoned? If we've all fighting for dialysis machines because of the kidney disease that we have got through the poisoning of our water. So it's a question of priorities. Either we don't believe that we face an existential threat, or we are just not serious. And second of all, Ghana was prepared to send troops to a neighboring country when there was a coup. But you're trying to tell me that we don't have the manpower to deal effectively with the illegal miners. Before you go, you count the cost. You know that it's not dealing with two people. So you go properly equipped so that they can't later on accost you on motorbikes and so on and so forth. We know where we are dealing with. And I'm saying that if we don't take matters seriously, we will go down the line of some Latin American countries where the drug cartels are controlling certain parts of the country. We're on a very slippery slope. And if we don't act yesterday, the next best time is today. We are all going to face irreparable damage. So I'm calling on the president. We have also written to him because we are saying that if he's serious about revoking EI 144, he doesn't need anybody. He can do it straight away. If he's serious about the state of emergency, it can be declared. If he's serious about revoking LI 2462, why has nothing been laid before Parliament? It can be passed straight away. They have the majority, and even the NPP claimed they were going to revoke it. So we want to see some seriousness. State of emergency, revoke LI 2462 and pause community mining. And then seriously, with a state of emergency, remove everybody from our forest reserves and water bodies. No mining, absolutely no mining, even if they purport to have licenses, should be taking place in forest reserves or water bodies.
Right. Ben, I'm hearing that nothing really has changed. What over to you?
Well, I will put that question to Erastus Asare-Donkor. He's been on the ground. He's been there, done that. Erastus, has anything changed for you? And for those of you who have been on the ground, what's the situation been like on the back of recent assaults?
prompt answer. I would say that we have learned right from when government changed that the various elements in government have started reaching out to the kingpins of Galamsey. What I mean is that there are people who are fronting and who were fronting for the previous administration and elements in that government to destroy forests. And we have strong evidence to the effect that they have been linking up with these people and saying that, yes, we're going to use you, we're going to work with you, and all that. A typical example is what we are seeing in the Tano Anua Forest Reserve. Remember, that forest was invaded first by the previous administration. Very key elements in that government started wreaking havoc in that forest. And as they left, we are learning that more people have invaded the forest. And there are 3 groups currently working. And as of yesterday, they were working. I had fresh drone footage indicating they destroying the forest in there. One led by a known NDC activist called Karim. Another one is led by a known NDC activist known as Baron. And the other one, they call him Mahama Bodyguard. He is also leading the other group. And they pitched camp directly inside the forest. In fact, they've been fighting amongst themselves to the extent that 2 people have already died from gunshot wounds. A third one is in critical condition, and they are still actively mining. In fact, all the actors, the various people on the ground, point accusing fingers at the MP for our win. But when I called him, he's denying it. But everybody on the ground is saying he's the one who sponsored the group to bring them inside the forest in the first place.
Erastus, before you go on, when you say everyone you speak to points to the Awin MP, who is everyone?
Everyone, stakeholders, those who are mining. We have NDC groups that we've been speaking with, former chairmen, former organizers, who are all pointing accusing fingers at him. But when I called him, he says he has no involvement, he has no interest in mining there. He only advocated that if people have been granted the chance to mine, then his boys, who are known party activists, should be allowed to also mine. To me, that's an illegality. And I was asking him the same question, that if you advocate that your boys who are NDC people should be allowed to mine, is that not condoning an illegality? Because one, they do not have license to mine in a forest reserve. There are strict regulations already. There's somebody who owns that concession. That person has a mining lease, but he has not been allowed to mine. Even when he was pitching his camp, just building structures outside the forest, he was asked to stop and go through the process and get Water Resources Commission license before he's allowed to even build his own structures that he don't live in. So how much more can you allow over 17 excavators to enter the forest, all under the pretext that they should be allowed to mine because they are party boys? That is my confusion. We have laws. Every part, every section of mining in this country is guarded by laws. And inside that law, it tells you how to mine in a forest reserve, the steps to be taken at every given step. Why do we want to go the other way around? And I think it's something that we need to critically look at. Now, when I said that government elements are supporting this, the forest reserve is a no-go area. In fact, the Forestry Commission guards it with their lives. To be able to cut one excavator into a forest, you might have a very big, huge political backing, or else you can't. So to move over 17 excavators into the Tano Anua Forest Reserve requires that you have a strong person behind you. And that is why they are able to pitch camp inside the forest. And even when we had done the story and put the story out there, they have not been flashed out. They continue to mine illegally and boldly with guns. I have videos of them, brandishing their pistols and, weapons in there, that whoever dares come in there, they are going to deal with the person. So I think that we should not condone that impunity which existed in the previous administration that has gotten the Pamprama Forest Reserve, 50% of it, now pits and gullies. We are looking for millions of dollars to reclaim that forest. So why do we want to add more pits and gullies to Pamprama and then start looking for money that the taxpayer is going to pay?
Just a quick final bit with you, Erastus, and you've broached the subject of some of what I was going to get into. So some Forestry Commission staff were recently assaulted, beaten to a pulp. We saw the video. Over 17 excavators, like you rightly mentioned, and it would take some logistical, and maybe political backing to be able to get even one excavator into such an area. Are you then of the opinion, like Dr. Ken Ashigbe mentioned, that indeed nothing has changed in the fight against Galamsey? And I also want to confirm, is that to say that there's not been any proper interaction with the Alwyn MP? All he has done is deny, but there's been no proper interaction with him to find out what exactly is going on.
Well, I have asked him so many times that question. So what is going on? He says he doesn't know. But I am privy to certain conversations that indicate that he needs to know something and is aware of something. And he has reached out to certain people, though he denies it. The other point is that I wouldn't say nothing has changed and that the status quo is the same. Again, I will also want to believe that nothing has changed. And I'll tell you why. Since I aired this story and I've been posting it on my Facebook page and has attracted a large public uproar, I've gotten calls from a number of people from the seat of government. And in fact, I will not be able to disclose what they told me about what they're going to do this morning. And that is a change, because previously I've done how many reports? I've done a whole bit on Tanon Imre. I've done a whole bit on forest under siege. On Pamprama, nothing happened. Not even a cough from any government minister. Even when I sent my works to the ministers themselves on their WhatsApp pages, nobody contacted me. So to me, that's a start. And I'm waiting to see what will happen today, at the close of day today, what will happen to that invasion in the forest. Again, I've also received calls from the new minister who wants to express interest to work with us. The media, to be able to, he says they are not going to go the same way that the previous administration went. So I am bating my breath and holding on for the next few days after his vetting and all that to see the plan that this government has for Galamsey. And we're going to do our work as diligently as we have done. That I can assure everybody.
I see. Interesting, very interesting developments there. At least this shows some action, and hopefully action that will not remain on the surface of words, but will actually be brought to bear. But let me quickly run this by the rest of you. I'll start with you, Dr. Ken Ashigbe. You said that less than about 100 licenses had been granted before January the 7th. It's actually 102. There were 103, one granted after the 7th, specifically on January the 19th, and 102 between January the 1st and January the 6th by the outgone Akufo-Addo administration. But you speak about a cease and desist order. You speak about a state of emergency. If I asked you, on the back of all of the happenings, party people getting in there, Galamsey being what it is, what Erastus has spoken of, Awula Sewa talking about LI 2462, among others, what would be your simple roadmap as of today for, let's say, the next month, the next quarter, in dealing with Galamsey? What would you say, Dr. Ashigbe?
Well, thank you very much. And so, again, it's deja vu for us. And so, for myself and you, the media, and who've been involved in this, we've seen how these things happen. And I'm happy with the feedback that Erastus has given. That's a good sign. And also, so someone talked about what is it, the manifestos of the NDC itself. And I would extend it to say what is in the manifestos of the MPP as well, and what the president has said they should do. But you see, it is not for nothing that our old folks say, so it is important for us to stop, to put a halt to what is happening, and let everybody seize every activity that they are doing. And as Allah has said, the water bodies, the buffers of the water bodies, the forest reserves completely should be no-go areas. So those ones should completely be said that cannot happen. Then once we have done that, because this is a new regime that has come in, and they have plans already in there, it is important that the engagement should happen. But you cannot have the engagement happening when these distractions are happening. And the signaling should be very, very strong. The president himself had mentioned earlier on that, if you are in his government, you are not going to be allowed to be engaged in these activities. So definitely this minister for, this MP for Awen, need to be brought, because for him, he's one of the few leaders who are currently in place in the Awen place. And 17 excavators. Who is the police commander in that particular district or constituency? Who are the intelligence chiefs in that constituency? Who are the EPA bosses? Who are the MENCOM people? All of these should be brought in to say they need to answer. As Awula will tell you, in the past regime, the firefighters were the arsonists. And all of these people were involved in the crime. The people in the Jubilee House who were all involved in it. So if we really would want to say that we're going to change this, then we need to start telling those who are still at post, those who are supposed to be in those communities, that the days where we're going to accept mining happening a few meters away from a police post are completely long gone. And we would hold you accountable. So those are the things that we need to do. But you see, Professor Gordon says something, that Galamsey is a wicked problem, needs a lot of research, needs a lot of engagement. So once we do that cease and desist, allowing the water bodies, the forest to breathe, then we can then come up with strategies about, this whole gold bond and getting people, getting the geological survey people to do the survey and mapping of where actually mining should be happening. But the airline has to completely go. We need to move out all of those equipment from those places. We need to ensure that who are those 17 excavators, who imported them into this country. We also need to make sure that situations like Akonta mining, for example, where you had for once, you had the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources point out to the then Ashanti Regional, Ashanti Regional chairman of the MPP, who and another are the directors of Akonta mining, who are involved. Erastus has video footages of it. The Forestry Commission has a report that shows that man was involved in an illegality. That man by now should be taken to court. Heritage Imperial, another large-scale miner who were given prospecting licenses, who were in the Praprama Forest Reserve mining with over 36 excavators. They went to court in suing Erastus. They themselves confessed in their court document that they are mining operations. But we had written to the EPA, and the EPA had told us that they did not have a permit to begin those mining. So we need to start showing that these people who were involved in the destruction of our land, the killing of our people, they will be facing, the laws that we have in our country. And so those signals have to be given immediately. That young woman who we saw on your video, asking for that illegality to be done. Again, she sits against the Minerals and Mining Act. She should be hauled before court to be able to answer. The former DCE of one of the DCE who was caught on tape confessing to an illegality. All of these people have to be punished. Right, and that's the roadmap for you. I'll throw that same question to Awula Sewa. One of the excavators, you would see a certain company's name on the excavator. I am refraining from mentioning the name. But what would be your roadmap? And
for example, looking at the licenses that have been granted in recent times, should we be looking into the 103, not just the 102 prior to this administration taking over? Should we be looking into those licenses?
Of course we should, but let me first start by commending all the journalists, Erastus, Ohimeng, all the journalists who are putting their lives on the line to try and avert this existential crisis we're facing. But of course, we know the owners, or we should know the owners of these excavators, and they should be brought before court. They should be prosecuted. But we have set our roadmap. We cannot have a situation where forest guards are assaulted, and it seems like the order of the day. As I said, we are slipping into parts of Latin America where drug cartels control parts of the country. That's not what we want for Ghana. So if the president is serious, immediately he must declare a state of emergency. We must revoke EI 144 and LI 2462. We should not have anybody in our forest reserves, let alone those with globally significant biodiversity areas. And as has been eloquently said by my brother Ken, of course we should revoke all mining licenses. Of course there should be a pause on mining until we can get our act together. And let me be absolutely clear.
When you say clarify for me, Awula, revoke all mining licenses. Which aspects of mining are you? Okay.
All mining licenses in forest reserves, in my opinion, should be revoked, and we should desist from issuing any more until we can go over them and find out who is doing the right thing, who is not. Because as has been said, the fact that you have a mining license doesn't mean you can just start mining. But that's what happens most of the time, because there's no enforcement. We are allergic to enforcement. We made a complaint in Atronsu when persons claiming to have a community license were mining. The EPA asked whether they had an EPA license. We wouldn't know because we don't work with the EPA. But to date, none of the EPA officials, to my knowledge, have gone to confirming. And then I'm thinking that it's very, very important that, as has been said, we look into the report that Professor Frimpong Boateng wrote, which was hiding under somebody's desk until the press uncovered it. All those mentioned should be seriously investigated and prosecuted. And those found guilty, their assets should be used towards the reclamation. We've talked about how expensive it is to reclaim. So we just keep on causing a mess, and then we go and beg for money to reclaim. What kind of, this is absolute nonsense. So all those who are polluting our water bodies and our landscape should know that the polluter pays. Will be operating the polluter pays principle. If all your assets are stolen, all your assets are used, it will teach other people that this is not the way to go. And let me say this here, we keep on talking about the livelihood of miners. What about the livelihood of peasant farmers and fishermen? According to the Peasant Farmers Association, over 2 million peasant farmers are at risk of losing their livelihood because of the canker going on. What about them? So I'm saying that we should get our priorities right. We face an existential threat. The roadmap is to declare a state of emergency, remove all miners and mining equipment from our forest reserves and our water bodies, and then simultaneously revoke EI 144, which the president can do today if he's minded to do so, and revoke LI 2462, and stop doing mining licenses. The Minerals Commission, I'm surprised the CEO is still at post. But they should stop issuing mining licenses.
You're referring to Martin Aisi. And Sweetie, it's interesting because we brought that story in recent times where you got us the news where, in fact, a fisherman had gone, the fisherfolk were going, and they would get fish that were badly injured with, all kinds of sores and all that, which meant that they could not be consumed.
Tragic.
Absolutely.
But I want to stay with Awula Serwaa. Last year, there was a Galamsey Pact that was signed by the aspirants to end Galamsey within 3 months. I saw a post by Professor Jampo saying that they are meeting with governments to remind them of that pact. But as part of the roadmap last year, there was the option of looking to international bodies, international eco-conscious bodies, to help propel the fight. If, we were saying that the previous administration lacked the political will to actually halt this menace. Is it too early for us to still, look to international bodies to help us? Or we should still give this administration some room?
We can do that, but I believe in self-help. That we can stop it today by ourselves if we are, as you said, the political will may not be there, But what the citizenry
Wait,
can
is
do
it your opinion that this administration, although it's a bit early, do you think they also lack the political will to tackle this head on?
I haven't seen it. They were quick to respond, as I said, when trespassers went to Anglo Gold. They were quick to respond. I haven't seen any response since, for example, Ohimeng and others were attacked. I haven't seen, maybe it was done and I have missed it, but I haven't seen any response. The recent assault on when Erastus tells us that they've reached out to him, fair enough, but so far as the public is concerned, we haven't seen any public response about the mayhem and the anarchy and lawlessness going on. So I don't see the political will to do anything about it. But of course, there might be things going on that I am not aware of.
Dr. Kenashigbe, this pact that was signed, has it lost its purpose?
Oh, no. I'm not too sure. Well, in our letter to His Excellency the President, we reminded him of that. It's important to note that he was the first to have signed it. And so I would want to give him the benefit of the doubt. But unfortunately, it's eroding quite quickly with some of the things that are happening. But fortunately for us today, Erastus has talked about the reaching out that has happened. And so we're hoping that these meetings would happen and this cease and desist order would happen. I'm hoping that the MPs who are on the committee today would ask questions, direct questions of the minister designate, and we will see something from happening. So I would want, I'm a perpetual optimist, and the same way we gave His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo the benefit of the doubt and worked with him for him to jump on and then tell us that he was prepared to put his presidency on the line. I am hoping that His Excellency John Mahama will not just tell us that he is prepared, but he will actually put his presidency on the line and then work with us to ensure that that pact that he signed with us, comes in place. So again, I'll go with Aula and say that let's do it locally. Let's try and get ourselves to start it because we can do it. We can fix this problem. If His Excellency wants us to fix it, we can fix it.
Right. Mr. Bekwai, I know you've been listening for a while. So first you can reflect on everything that's been said so far and then add your perspective to it in terms of the political will demonstrated by this administration to fight Galamsey. What are your thoughts?
I would say that the political will be it's too early for you to assess because, as I said, the minister has also reached out to us CSOs that he wants to work with us, particularly the government plan to introduce the gold board. The government has, in their manifesto said the gold board would probably, I'm not sure yet, they said would probably take on the regulation of the small-scale sector in dealing with the sales of the gold from the small-scale sector. It may be very difficult until the minister is in power or has taken over. It will be very difficult to assess the political will. But in their manifesto, they committed and they signed a pact, which we were all around there, that they were going to fight Galamsey/illegal mining. I believe that for now, I also agree with what we had pushed the government to commit to, which is some sort of state of emergency on the rivers and the forest reserves. These are very
Mr. Bekwai, are you still with us? I think we lost Mr. Bekwai. Oh, I would have loved to listen to the end of it. Mr. Bekwai? Okay,
we'll try to get Mr. Bekwai back. Dr. Ashigbe, I am curious. With everything that has been said, I go back to the statement from the Ghana Coalition against Galamsey, and you write in that latest statement dated the 20th of January, despite these efforts, and you've mentioned a number of them, since the December 2024 elections, we have witnessed a further decline in the situation. The perpetrators have exploited perceived leadership and governmental silence on the matter, leading to an increase in illegal mining activities. Keyword there, silence. The president has been accused of not saying much, if anything at all, on Galamsey. How long for you before the time runs out for Mr. President in terms of actively not just working behind the scenes, but speaking about illegal mining?
So thank you. Well, fortunately, I think His Excellency has a good opportunity today at the vetting of the minister designate. I am very hopeful that we should hear something from His Excellency so that immediately after today, we should be able to start seeing some action being done. If we take what has been happening, then once the vetting is done, almost immediately the ministers are then sworn in. I am hoping that at the swearing in of the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, and I am just assuming that he would still be responsible for the whole mining thing, we would hear something very definitive from His Excellency the President. But you see, as Joy News has started it today, as the media has started it today, we need to up the ante so far as the conversation around this illegality is concerned. It is important that over the 50 organizations that spoke about this calamity that befalls us, we should all know that nothing has changed. The calamity is still continuing. And so we all need to ratchet up, the octave, take the noise an octave up, and let, the politicians know that as the Constitution says, sovereignty comes from us. I was listening to Felix Ofosu-Kwakye yesterday, and he spoke some very wise words of wisdom about the fact that it is us who have elected these people into office. So the time has come. We showed it in the elections where we decided that arrogance, disrespect for citizens were not going to be tolerated again. And so it is important for anybody who has been elected into office, be it NDC or MPP, whoever has been appointed, to realize the fact that the time where we sat docilely and we allowed them to do what they wanted to do, profiting from our death, profiting from our injury, has all gone.
So the time is now, right?
Or the time is today or yesterday.
Okay.
So that MP from Awen, it is important that he really comes very clean, because all of us, we will definitely be going for him as an example to show to people that we're not going to anybody to do that.
Sweetie, let's head back to Mr. Bequim.
Yeah, we lost you there briefly, Mr. Bequim.
Yes, I agree that there should be a state of emergency on the rivers and the forest reserves. That is really key. And we can combine technology to fight that. I know we are all talking about this, but if you ask a raptor, the ground terrain is not easy to access sometimes. It needs technology, whether drones, whether helicopters, whatever it is. We have also tested some technologies that help in terms of human heat, detecting human heat in certain forest reserves that you are not supposed to see a lot of people there, to be able to know and tracking down where the movement have been. And we've got to know that it was from these forests straight to the China towns in Kumasi and then to Dubai and then to China. We track all of that. It was a pilot project, but it worked very well with the technology. That would be key in terms of trying to fight the rivers, fight distraction to our rivers and our forest reserves. With regards to, I know my other speaker talked about the fact that it's illegal and it's it's a criminal activity. Yes, of course, the amendment in 2019 makes it even worse in terms of mining illegally. However, we have to be very realistic in our approach in fighting this. In areas that are not forest reserves, in areas that are community land, the community feels very dejected when they thought that people got license from Accra and came to be on their land. They didn't have any right to stop them. So all of them have now gotten themselves involved. And fighting such illegality, as mentioned, without the community support has been very difficult. And sometimes you get the police there, the community themselves call these miners to run away because the police are coming to them, or the military men or minerals commission are coming to them. So we need to also try and see what we want to do with the communities who have gotten themselves involved. They feel this is their livelihood. They feel this is something that they are dependent on. Some of them are gold dealers. Some of them are benefiting because of demand for food, among others. So they themselves don't want this to be fought. Some of them, not all,
right,
because of their dependency on it. So the approach has to be very, very collaborative. It has to be stakeholder focused. I know we are going to have a national dialogue on economy, but if there is opportunity, we should have a community-level dialogue to decide with the community what approaches will be good for them to fight this, because they also don't like the fact that their rivers have been destroyed. I have been going to Amansia West, and as I speak to you, Erastus knows this. Amansia West bordering central region, which is Dunkao area. So from the Chirabuasi, you enter into certain Apabuaso and all these areas. There is no river with fish anymore. I can say that on authority. No stream, no tributary, no river with any fish in it, because all of them have been destroyed with mud, with debris, and then there are no fishes in these rivers. And so it's very concerning to them. The timing, as have been asked, I think is also now. Once the minister finishes, that should be one of his priorities. How are we going to deal with it? But the state of emergency should come immediately for the rivers and the forest reserves. And I agree with that.
Thank you. I will go to Ohiming Tewia in a bit, but I want to find out from Awula Serwaa briefly, what would be your assessment of the citizens ourselves, our fight or approach to this? Last year, you saw how many people poured out on the streets, which resulted in people arrested. International media picked it up. Would you say that we still have that fight in us as we speak?
Yes, I mean, I've seen posts that if nothing changes, there'll be a demonstration on 6th March. I have seen that. But what I would say is that we should all realize that Ghana belongs to all of us. And the idea that when you win elections, that means that you are coming to plunder the country should be a thing of the past. We did not vote decisively in these elections for another group of criminals to take over one group of criminals. Ghanaians have to know that Ghana belongs to all of us. And as I keep on saying, this canker is killing us, poisoning us, but also destroying the livelihood of fishermen. We've just heard that a lot of the water bodies have no fish, and also of peasant farmers. And it's not true that mining is the only occupation left. And in many communities, they are against this so-called community mining. So the people I used to say that we're not angry enough. I used to keep on saying we're not angry. But I think the anger is coming. And when we go on demonstrations, it should be orderly. It should be lawful, because we don't believe in lawlessness. And we shouldn't give the police the excuse to come and arrest any of us. So everything should be lawful. But the government should know that there's no honeymoon period, because we face an existential threat. They ought to have been planning before the elections. Any serious person who wants to take over power, before you get the power, you're in the drawing room planning. So as soon as you get the power, you're not now thinking of who you're going to put here and there. Everything is already in place. As I said, I'm no fan of President Trump, but at least he knew what he wanted to do, and he wasn't waiting for 100 days or 120 days, which frankly is far too long. If we believe that we face an existential threat, how on earth would we give anybody 120 days to deal with such a serious problem?
Thank you so much, Awula Serwaa. Let's talk to Ohiming Tewia now, a journalist with Love FM. Ohiming, you also on the front line. Talk to us about what's changed in terms of the status quo right now and the threats that you face as journalists still on the fight to shed light on what's happening to our river bodies and forest reserves.
Thank you, Siti. I will say, for now, I have been battling for my life for some time now.
Ohiming, kindly speak up for us.
I'm sorry, because I'm unable to shout on top of my voice because of my current situation. So I'm very, very sorry if you can.
It's okay, we'll manage. Go ahead.
Yes, so I've gone through a lot looking at the expose that I did on illegal mining in the Ofei shelter bed. Prior to elections, I got an information that many actors, as at that time, those in government corridors of power, those in the security agencies, and even traditional leaders and local politicians and national politicians were all involved and they were plundering the forest reserve. In the first place, I went in as undercover, a journalist to uncover what was really happening. And on the ground, then I realized what I was dealing with was so heavier, was so higher, was so powerful because people who were so powerful were involved, as mentioned earlier. And even to some extent, national security operatives were the ones providing security at this mining site. Remember the story on 5th December, where the Forestry Commission officials looked helpless, complaining, throwing their hands in the air that the forests have been taken over by people that they describe as thugs.
Oh, that's not a good sound to hear at all.
Really sad development there. We'll try to quickly circle back to Ohiming Teria. But that brings me to this quick thought, Sweetie and our guests this morning. How effective do we feel the military can be in this fight? Because we've always used the military in there. How effective can they be, and how do we empower the Forestry Commission? Because literally, they have thrown their hands in the air. Basically, they've lost the fight. How do we empower them? Maybe quickly before we get Ohiming Teria back, I'll throw that to Awula Sewa and Dr. Ashigbe. Very brief thoughts on that. Awula.
Let me say that I'm a bit disappointed. I mean, we've seen the journalists being beaten up, and Ohiming suffered life-threatening injury, but I didn't see enough anger from the media. One of your own, your own are being attacked, and I didn't see enough anger from the media. But what I would say is that our army is professional. When well headed, they're able to do what they need to do. So what is happening right now is that there's not much leadership going on. But I believe that if we properly equip the army, they are competent when they choose to be. They are professional enough to deal with this problem. But first of all, you do preparations. You have your drones and so on, and so find out the opposition before you go in and make sure that you secure the area properly. And I wouldn't say the forestry people have thrown their arms in the air. They are being attacked with not much help. What can they actually do in the face of what is going on? So if we really want to clamp down on illegal mining, we need to look at the appropriate support for those who are literally putting their lives on the line. To protect our forest reserves and our water bodies. We need to have a properly equipped military presence. That's the only way we're going to make some headway.
Two quick follow-ups. One, we have also seen that in the past, it has been possible in some instances. If you remember the expose, which pointed to Charles Bissu, right? The military, at some point, some of them have been complicit in all of this. How do we deal with that? And there has also been the call from last year. Some have suggested if we're going to end this, we must be brutal, radical, shoot to kill. What do you think?
Well, as a lawyer, I don't believe in shoot to kill because, you cannot kill anybody and, well, only in self-defense. That is my policy, only in self-defense. Of course, if people are shooting at you, well, they ask for it, nothing can be done. But what happens is that when we find elements of the army misbehaving, we have to deal with them brutally straight away. Court-martial them, prosecute them, do whatever needs to be done. But we're not doing that, and that is why it's festering. I believe that our military can do what they need to do if we make sure that should they deviate from their task, we deal with them.
All right. Doc, I'll come to you later on that same point. But, Sweetie, for now, let's go back.
Yeah, Ohiming Teria is back online with us, and he was narrating his ordeal. Ohiming, please go ahead. We lost you briefly. Ohiming Teria, if you can hear me, please unmute.
Yes, I can hear you.
Great.
I think it's the...
Yes, you are telling us about your deal, what happened to you and some things that you are looking to seeing. I lost that story, the plot of it.
Yes, so after the expose, December, my joinings, and then this December, the of December, I had a call from my source, a national security did inform me. Team.
Ohiming, we're losing very important things, very important aspects of what you're saying. Just backtrack about 30 seconds and start again, please.
Okay. I hope it's better now.
Yes,
I think it is.
The network is very, very poor today.
So after the expose, yeah.
Yes. With my security source, who told me of the impending police raid at the site, and if I'm interested, then I can join.
No.
I myself and the camera technician were embedded in the police team that left the Ashanti Regional Police Headquarters at Edum just to raid at the mining site. So in the convoy of about 4 vehicles, we entered at a community called Ariafutu in the Atumamponwa district. Prior to I was aware that this was a virgin forest where no...
Ohiming, is it possible to move around a bit to see if you get a more a stable place? Because we are missing some words and it's difficult to piece them together. Well, while we wait and see how maybe we can try and reconnect with Ohiming on a different line to see if it will be better then.
Well, let me, as we work at that, let me throw that question to you as well. The involvement of the military, how effective it will be, and making the Forestry Commission officials feel they have what it takes to do the work. Because for now, I know Awula Sewad disagrees, but for now, because they don't have what it takes, they feel it doesn't make sense to do what they are mandated to do because their lives are at risk. Dr. Ashigbe, any quick reflections on that before we circle back to Ohiming Teria?
See, the Forestry Commission, they are they've been militarized to an extent where some of their forest guards are giving some weaponry. But the thing to realize is that these galamseyers are coming very heavily armed. If you remember when we're doing Operation Vanguard, the number of arms and ammunition that are seized, and even if you see some of the videos that Erastus has shared very recently, the level of armament that these people carry. Don't forget, in the last government, the Eastern Regional Minister had gone with 30 men to an operation. When they got there, they had to retreat because of the level of arms that those people were carrying. And for me, it was an intelligence failure then. As Awula had said, when you're going into these operations, our expectation is that you need intelligence to guide you to know what strengths they have. And you see, this is an existential threat, as we've been saying. And the army, the military are prepared to deal with it. These are enemies of the state who are actually wanting to destroy us from within.
This is basically a war, isn't it?
It's definitely more than even a war. This is genocide that is being committed. So you definitely would have to go in with the army. And you know the thing, the army, during Operation Vanguard, some of the army people were court-martialed. The challenge we have had is the political will, the fact that you have had people at the very top being complicit and involved in it. That is what has happened. But if you allow the army to do what they are empowered to do, they will be able to do it. These are Ghanaian army people that have excelled in peacekeeping action, where they go into the theaters of war and are able to do with it. They will deal with these issues those who are in authority do not meddle in it, and we ensure that the law works. Professor Gordon prescribed a Ghana as a solution, and the G is good governance. So if we do it in such a way that His Excellency the President would, as Commander-in-Chief, would give them marching orders to say, deal with this. You are not going to get any big man has called you, and it happens. They go arrest the people, and then they call them, they tell them, oh, let these people go. If that is not going to happen, you would find out that the army would be able to do it. So once we can empower, and you see, and so that's why, so the first one is Ghana. The second, your age is harnessing our local authorities, bringing all of them also in. So the solution is not one fit all. It's not just militarization. It is about various things about it, changing the attitudes of the youth, the issue of using natural methods. All of them are part of the Ghana to be able to resolve this. So yes, the military have a very good role to play, because of the fact that we're dealing with a situation which is life and death, and some people have already died. The Forestry Commission, once they are also empowered, and we are able to ensure that they have the necessary linkages with the police, with the army, so that when they are overwhelmed, they will be able to bring them in. We provide them in places like the Awin area, for example, where we know that now there is a lot of people there. We provide them with the air support. So you don't only go there with the ground forces, but you have the Air Force flying sorties over these particular places. And then also these excavators are not carried in pockets. So on the roads, the police barriers and all of that, they have the power to make sure that these equipment are confiscated. When they are confiscated, you know the VIN numbers of them, who imported them into Ghana. You start rallying all of these people. And we do a lot of sunshine, throw a lot of sunshine into this. Transparency in the way all of this will be dealt with. We would be able to stop these things from happening. So it is just the issue of the political will. And it starts, fortunately, with His Excellency the President. Now he has a minister in place, and letting everybody know that we're not going to allow these things of because you think you are in the NDC and your party has come into power, like that young woman said, you also go take your chisel and hammers and your guns and go in there. Once that can happen, we then would then be able to ensure that the right things are going to be done. And that will only happen if we, the citizens of Ghana, and you know, all of us again say that never again are we going to allow ourselves to be killed. Those who have died, we need to ensure that we're going to stand up and make sure that the right things are done.
Let me stay with you, Doc. I mean, of course, the president is, the top of the line, but Parliament is also in there. They're the ones who passed that LI 2462 anyway. Is it a wonder to you why they haven't yet started the processes to repeal that LI yet?
Well, I'm not too sure why that is delaying. Because now the attorney, but well, we should also give them the benefit of the doubt. The Attorney General who just came into office. You know, fortunately for us, the Speaker of Parliament, when we sent an invitation for him to join the Ghana Coalition Against Galamsey, agreed to join the coalition. So we're hoping that now that the Attorney General has been in office for about a few days, this should be one of the first things that we should do. And now the NDC has the overwhelming majority, because earlier on they said they were going to take a private member's bill to revoke it. You know, so now they have an overwhelming majority. They don't need a private member's bill again. They can immediately take this thing and on the certificate of urgency, take that out. But one of the things we need to do, we need to go back and issue an RTI to the EPA and to the Minerals Commission and find out when His Excellency, the former president, decided that they were not going to operationalize the LI again. Were any other permit signed again? And who were signed for? All of that would be an illegality, because if the president himself had declared that we were not going to operationalize this law, who else would that have been given to? So we need to also find this thing.
But Dr. Ashigbe, I think the answer is already out there, because between the 1st and the 6th of January, all of these licenses that were given were post some of the comments made by the former president about LI 2462.
So what we need to do immediately is to find out who these are. And the same way that the bauxite mining lease that was signed by the NDC in December 27, 2016 was revoked by the MPP government when they came. All of those licenses who are found not to be, legitimate should also be revoked immediately. And if any of them were licenses given in the forest reserve, they should be cancelled immediately. If there were licenses that were abutting any of our water bodies, they also should go. And so it's important that when they are done very transparently and they are published so that we know that this is what happened. And if any of the officers who signed this after the president has said that was not going to go, these people too, if they have sinned against any of our laws, they need to be brought to court and they should be punished. The thing about it is that we should use the hot stove principle. We should not allow any impunity again to happen. If Kenneth Ashigbe does it, it should burn them. If Awola does it, it should burn them. If the NDC, Ashanti Regional Party chairperson does it, it should burn him also immediately. So that's why we need to be very brutally honest with ourselves in the dealing with this particular issues that we have on our hands.
Right. Thank you so much, Doc. And Ohimin Tewia is back online with us. Ohimin, you were telling us about what happened after the expose was aired, and we kept the internet or the connection was just so bad. So can you start all over again?
Yes, sweetie. So after the expose, then on December 20th, the police team left the Ashanti Regional Police Headquarters at Edum to raid the illegal mining site at the Anua-Futu side of the Tano Ofin Shelter Bed Forest Reserve. So when we entered the site, usually with the Galamsey site, you meet metal or even wooden barricades erected by the illegal miners, and they are manned by security. In this instance, those who were manning this point were national security operatives who were armed to the teeth, because I saw pump action guns. These are latest pump action guns. And immediately the police team entered. They first arrested those at the barrier. Then those arrested were handcuffed and put in the custody of 2 police officers for the team to enter the site proper. When we entered the site, it's a very vast area. Then we got to the last point where these illegal miners had been mining, and you could see the large tracts of the forest, green forest that has been destroyed, and the gold washers were on, the gold washing machines were on, the water pumping machines were on, and they were in brisk business. But unfortunately, we didn't meet anybody at this site. Then those in charge, the excavator operators that the police team sent, were trying to track the excavators back, because the point and the arrangement was that the police had said they would take the excavators to the Nyinahini police station. And when the owners come for them, they can be arrested to face the law. Whilst at this site, a call came through from the police officers who were at the entrance that the illegal miners had regrouped, the security men had regrouped and mounted 2 more barriers outside the first one that we met. Then the police team decided to move to the entrance. We came to meet these large, illegal miners, their security operatives, dressed in military camouflage, some with hoods all over. You cannot even see their faces. And they started making demands that first, police have to release the security men that they have arrested, and also return the seized arms that they took from the illegal miners. And then they were also insisted that police release money, mobile phones, and wrappers of gold that they took. And then also, the last demand was that the Joy News team will have to surrender our camera for them to take a look at the images that we have taken at the site. So then they started, all these demands were made whilst they were they were agitating. And you could see their numbers kept growing, their numbers kept increasing, to the point that the miners had introduced a first reinforcement. So the first reinforcement came, and they were also dressed in military camouflage. by this time around, they were armed more than the first team that we met at the site. And so they started deflating the tires of the buses that we went to the site with. At that time, myself and the camera technician and some excavator mechanics and operators were on board. And police has said that we should remain on board so that they deal with the situation. Then they started deflating the tires of the buses, and then they started also pelting us, throwing stones at the bus. And I saw the first person being hit in the head by one of the stones. He collapsed in the vehicle, and then you could see blood oozing all over. And myself, I was the second person to be hit by the stone. And in the midst of all these agitations, I saw the assemblyman for Anyefutu, Kechiri Opoku, somebody I had interviewed on November 30th, present in the midst of the illegal miners, shouting on top of his voice that he has spoken to the district police commander, and that the police commander says he has no idea, he has no knowledge of the operation of the police team, and that everybody, all of us at the premises were armed robbers, were criminals, and that is why the police commander is not aware. So all these comments appear to have incited the illegal miners and emboldened them. And so immediately I was hit by the stone. I fell in the vehicle, and you could see I started bleeding, blood all over, to the point that I saw a unit committee member. When I spoke to the assemblyman on that particular day, there were 2 unit committee members present. So I saw him and called him, "Chief, can you help us?" And he was very, very, he felt so uncomfortable that myself and the camera technicians were in the bus and we have been attacked. So he tried to offer some support to lead us out of the bus. And the camera technician had to be pulled through the window of the bus. So whilst we were being escorted by the unit committee member, we were running. Then the people, the illegal miners, the security men started, approaching us, and I had to shout on top of my voice. This time around, I'll say I had my Joy News jacket on. So we're shouting, we are not armed robbers. Some for if you Joy News. So wait, we are not armed robbers. We are journalists from the Joy News team, and we have come here just to cover events as unfold. But these people were still, coming all over us. And then the assembly member also, the unit committee member, also had to shout on top of his voice. When he realized the attacks were, becoming so pronounced, me a unit committee, me a committee member. So to wait, he is from the community. He lives there with them, and he's a member of the unit committee. So he had to be freed in that manner. But at the point I realized he left me because the people were so many. They had, those who had joined the attack on us were so many. Then I was hit on the...
Sorry to interject. How did he leave you? How did he escape the attack?
In fact, when the security men, their numbers were increasing and he was shouting on his voice, it's like at that point, he had to run for his life. So I cannot say what exactly he did, but at that moment, he was not with us. He was the one leading us to safety, but I couldn't find him because the numbers had swelled. The number of the security operatives had grown and has increased, so he had to leave the scene. Then I was hit on the upper part of my chest by a stone, and it sent me down. All this while, I was bleeding. I was, shouting on top of my voice that I'm a journalist from Joy News TV, and the people pulled, I saw them because when we went there, we spent almost 2 hours. So I saw one of the security men pull a machete. Hello.
Yes, we're going to have more time to expand on these issues, because this is not an issue that we can exhaust just today. It's an issue that we'll have to be discussing. But I see, just as we conclude, and it's interesting because when we head over to Parliament's vetting committee or the appointments committee this morning, the one who is going to be in the hot seat, Emmanuel Ama Kofi-Boah, is the Minister Designate for Lands and Natural Resources, which segues neatly into this conversation. We'll be hearing from him on what they are going to do about illegal mining. But before we go there quickly, Ohimeng, I see some plaster on your head. Can you show us the damage that was done to you?
Yeah, that was the head injury I sustained. And I also sustained some injuries all over my body because you can see I was really stoned. They threw stones at me, tried to sever my legs with machete. So the plaster you see here is the head injury I sustained. Unfortunately for me, this morning, I'm supposed to have gone for a dressing at the hospital. But because of this conversation, I had to put that one on hold. So since then, I've had this plaster on me.
We wish you a very speedy recovery, Ohimeng Teria. And we thank you for what you're doing for God and country. We'll leave you to attend to your wounds, and later we shall, when the time is proper, come back to you as we push this agenda forward. Very quickly, we have to head to Parliament. So, ladies, gentlemen, 1 minute or less, quick thoughts about the way forward. Your concluding thoughts. I'll start with you, Awula Sewa.
We face a state of, we need to call a state of emergency. I'm so upset about what I've heard about Ohimeng. We cannot allow the situation to go on. We will sink to the levels of Latin American countries if we do not act yesterday. An army officer told me that they can end this within 3 months. Within 3 months, if they are given the equipment and there's no political interference. Okay. He told me they can solve this in 3 months.
Thank you for your thoughts, Awula Sewa. Let's go to Samuel Bekwe. Okay, I think we've lost Samuel Bekwe. Let's do Dr. Ashigbe as we conclude. Doc? A minute or less.
Thank you very much. I'm hoping that we would hear some positive things from the Honorable Minister Designate. Awula had said he's been given 3 months. I got one of the top regulators tell me that if the president then wanted this solved, we will solve it within a month. So I believe that if His Excellency President John Mahama, working with this minister, wants us to resolve it, we can resolve it and move to sustainable, responsible mining that can coexist with other agriculture and other things. Okay. Let's bear in mind, there's a genocide happening, there's an ecocide happening, and there will be responsibilities for it. Those who did not act in the past, they will be held responsible. Those in office today, if they don't act, they would also be held responsible. Thank you. Mr. Bekwe, quick thoughts.
Yes, I think this is the reason why I had earlier mentioned that if the military intervention may not be the only solution, there has to be a hybrid. The military has to go with the state agencies like MINCOM so that it empowers MINCOM for the illegal miners to do that. MINCOM has a right, and then they will use the military as a backup to ensure that anybody who blocks their kind of work. We've seen the military intervention before. Some of them was even converted into gold miners. Right. And the evidence is very clear. So let's have that hybrid and ensure that we empower the state agencies to do their work. But I would just quickly say that with the political interference, whether there is military or not, if there is still somebody calling from the office of the president or calling from the ministry, that interventions will never be sustainable. All right. So that is the first thing we have to cut out. The political interference. All right. Thank you very much, gentlemen and lady, for joining the conversation. Samuel Osei Bekwe joined the conversation, Executive Director, Center for Extractives and Development, Africa. We had Awula Sewa, founder, Eco-Conscious Citizens. We had Dr. Ken Ashigbe, Media Coalition Against Galamsey. We had Ohimeng Teria and Erastus Sasare Donko, colleagues working on this beat.